What is up, everyone? Hope you guys are all doing amazing. My name is Sahil and I am a UBC medical school student. I will be entering my second year in the fall, and today's video is going to be all about how I prepared for the MCAT and my study routine right after this intro. Let's go. Alright, welcome back to this channel. If this is your first time watching a video of mine, I want to say a big thank you and a welcome for joining our YouTube community. On this channel, I like to make medicine-related vlogs, I like to share my experiences about medical school, I like to make travel vlogs, and other fun videos just like that. So today's video is going to be how I prepped for MCAT, and the goal of today's video is that it will be the ultimate MCAT prep guide for you. I'm going to be breaking down today's video into what the MCAT is, when I wrote it and why, my macro timeline, so that's like how I structured my weeks, my months prior to MCAT test day, and then my micro timeline, so what I did in my day-to-day. And then lastly, I'll go over some key points, just like lessons I learned over the years that I really just want to pass on. So I have a feeling today's video is going to be a pretty long one, so get ready, get cozy, get your notepad out because I'm going to be trying to provide lots of value to you guys, and let's get right into it. First things first, if you're watching this video, it likely means that you're going to be writing the MCAT. Now, I know how stressful the whole idea of writing the MCAT can be, so I want to take this moment to say, take a breath, it's going to be okay, just breathe. To this day, I still get goosebumps about how stressful the MCAT was, but if there's one piece of advice I could give myself, it's to relax. It's going to be okay, and it was okay. When you're climbing a mountain, you don't climb a mountain overnight. When you're at the base of the mountain, it looks like, oh, this big journey. But at the end of the day, you climb it one step at a time. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing. Let's go over what the MCAT is. The MCAT is the Medical College Admission Test, which is a standardized multiple choice examination designed to assess your problem solving, critical thinking, and knowledge of natural, behavioral, and social science concepts and principles prerequisite to the study of medicine. Now, basically, the MCAT consists of 4 different sections, and those sections are going to be the biological and biochemical foundations of living systems, the chemical and physical foundations of biological systems, psychological, social, and biological foundations of behavior, critical analysis and reasoning skills, also known as the CAR section, the infamous CAR section. But trust me, you can do this. Now, each section is about 90 minutes, and each section also comprises of passages, which basically means you're going to have a body of text, you're going to read through it, and then the next 4 or 5 questions are going to be based around that passage. Next, I'll be talking a little bit about when I wrote the MCAT and why. Now, I personally decided to write the MCAT in my second year of undergrad in the summer, and the reason I chose that time is because, one, I didn't have any classes during that summer, which meant that I could just focus solely on the MCAT, and I found peace in that. And reason number 2 was because if I wrote it in my second year, I knew that just in case if I didn't do well, I would have the opportunity to write it again in my third year summer. So it's kind of like a backup choice, just in case I didn't do well. And I did end up writing it again in my third year, and there's tons of lessons I learned during that whole process, and my goal is to share those and pass those along with you. So now let's move ahead and talk about my macro timeline. So that means the months and weeks leading up to the exam, how I structured them. Now, I gave myself about 3.5 months, and I think that was a decent amount of time. The first 2 months I spent reviewing through all the prep books, and I'll go over which books I bought and everything. And the last 4 to 5 weeks I spent just doing practice tests. And now my 2 cents would be to first pick a test date, and then minus 1 day from that, because you're not going to be studying the day prior to the exam. And once you have that day, go 4 to 5 weeks before that on your calendar, and that is going to be when you start doing your practice tests. And any time before that, which should be about 2 months-ish, you want to be doing all your prep and going through all your material and reviewing all the information on the MCAT. I found that by structuring it that way, I had plenty of time to study, and I was pretty happy with how much I studied and my intensity as well. That being said, everyone is different. Everyone has a different approach to studying. Some people like studying in a crammed amount of time, and others like to study a year in advance. So try to find what works best for you. This is what worked best for me. I'm not giving any professional advice, just sharing my experience. Tip number 2, in regards to which MCAT prep company to go with, I personally decided to go with the Kaplan prep books. I'm not sponsored by them, I'm not getting paid to say this, but I just genuinely felt that when I was doing my research the first time around, in my first time writing the MCAT, and the second time for that matter, that Kaplan provided the most detailed information, and they also had that higher score guarantee or money back policy, which basically means that they're going to be trying to drill you hard with their practice tests. They're going to try to make sure you know all the information just in case the AAMC tries to throw a curveball at you. So that being said, I went with Kaplan and I don't regret it. I enjoyed their prep books. I liked their online resources, which came with 3 full practice length tests, and also flashcards as well. And they also had like a library of videos you could watch in case you were confused about a concept. I found them helpful. I would devote study blocks on a rotating basis to the 6 main subjects. So I think that was biochemistry, biology, general chemistry, organic chemistry, physics, and behavioral sciences. Now you'll notice that I didn't mention cars because I quickly skimmed through the cars book as quickly as I could the first couple of days. And I actually practiced and did cars passages every single day. I didn't do like one specific day devoted to cars or 2 days and do a rotating basis on that. Every day was important for me to do cars because I sucked at cars, and I knew that going into the exam. I knew that after I got my marks back from the first exam I wrote, first MCAT I wrote, so second time around I made sure I was on top of it with cars, and I'm happy to say I did increase my score by 4 points in the car section by doing that. And lastly, another key point about my macro timeline, I want to clarify that for my first year, when I was studying for the MCAT, I actually used the Kaplan books, and nothing against them, they were amazing. But second year around, I was also supplementing with the 300-page Khan Academy notes section, which is basically like all the Khan Academy psychology and sociology videos transcribed into a document. And I think that is so powerful. And if you're like, oh man, I don't want to go through 300 pages, you can go through just 100 pages. There's a 300-page document and a 100-page document, and someone was so kind that they put it into an Enki deck. So if you don't know what Enki is, it's basically like a flashcard app that you can download and put onto your laptop. And I think the second time I was studying for the MCAT, I didn't even touch the Kaplan psychology sociology books. All I did was go through the Enki deck. So a big shout out to the Reddit user premed95. I used his deck, and I was doing a quick search on Reddit again before this video, and that guy's Enki deck is still the #1 deck. I think someone actually revised it and updated his deck, so I'm gonna put a link to his deck or the revised version in the description below, so make sure to check that out as well, and also check out the 300-page document and the 100-page document. So while we're on that topic, I do want to clarify that anytime I was a little confused going through the Kaplan books and I didn't understand a concept, my go-to location to understand something would be Khan Academy. I think they do an amazing job explaining all these concepts. Like they would bring in, if I remember correctly, they would bring in experts, like people who knew exactly what they were talking about, and they would explain it in the most basic way so that someone like me could understand it. And I really appreciated that. Another key thing that I want to mention is how I prepared for my last 4 to 5 weeks leading up to the final MCAT exam. So what I would do is day one, I would write the exam. And I think that's gonna take you about 6 to 8 hours. And after I'm done writing the exam, that's all I do that day. I go to the gym after, because I didn't go to the gym in the morning, because you want to start and emulate those test-like conditions by writing it at 8 a.m. and making sure you're taking the allotted breaks and restricting yourself to the 90 minutes. And then day two, I would review all the questions that I got wrong and all the questions that I got right from that full length. And then the third day, I would make like a buffer day just in case I need more time to review any information. And then I would keep revolving between those days. So after the third day, after I'm done 2 days of reviewing a full length, I would write another test. And this would go on for 4 weeks, 5 weeks leading up to the final exam. The last 3 or 4 full lengths I want to write are from the AAMC. And you might be wondering, well, how can I get so many full lengths? So keep in mind that each of these MCAT prep companies also have their own full practice tests. that are like the MCAT, but not exactly like the AEMC one. But they're still good practice just to make sure you're getting into the feel of it. So point 3, I should clarify that on the last day before the MCAT test, I didn't study at all. I didn't touch any of my books, and I think rightfully so. If you think about it, you've been studying consistently for 3 to 4 weeks, and you don't need to be studying on that last day. At least I didn't think so, and that's the tips and the recommendations I got from my upper years for those students who had done well in the MCAT. So if anything, I think you deserve that one day to rest, and I think you would be happy to just reflect on how far you've come. Like, how many people can say that they've studied consistently, sometimes like 8, 10, 12 hours a day for the past 3 months, for the past 4 months, every single day in the summer, and missing out on like when all your friends are going to the beach or going for hikes, you're in there in a room or in a library studying. Like, kudos to you. I think you deserve that last day to relax. And if you're going to do anything, maybe just like light revision, quickly skimming through your notes, but not like sitting down and studying really hard. Another thing that I would recommend to do on the last day is to drive to the test site, just to get familiar with, okay, this is where I'm going to be writing the test. This is where I'm going to be entering and opening the door. Because a lot of times you'd be surprised, people think that they know where the location is, and they show up on the test day, they can't find it. I mean, I couldn't find my test location, but I went a day before. So the day of the test, when I went and tried to find where I'm going to write it, I knew exactly where I was going, where the door was, where my parents were going to park, where they're going to pick me up. And yeah. Okay, so those were my tips, and those were how I prepared on the macro. And now let's dive into what my micro schedule was. So my micro schedule, I'm referring to what I did day to day. So I have this written down, but basically I should also clarify that this schedule is what worked for me. Everyone has a different schedule. Like I said, I like to go to the gym. I like to exercise. So the first thing I would do in the morning when I wake up at 7:30 is I would get myself to the gym. I would get to the gym around 8:15 on a fasted stomach, and I would exercise and just have a ball. I would do like my weightlifting, I would do my cardio, and I think like ideally I would be there for about 2 hours. If I was having tons of fun, maybe 2.5 hours. But anyways, I would get home around 11:15, let's say. I would eat and I would freshen up, and about 11:45 I would be done. And I'm just resting for 15 minutes, getting myself prepped, talking to my parents or whoever's home, and talking to my sister, talking about what we're going to be studying. So for those of you who don't know, my sister and I actually wrote the MCAT together. So it's kind of nice having that study buddy. At 12 o'clock, around at noon, I would start studying. So that was the hard set time I had, that I'm going to start studying at noon. I would go from noon to about 1:30, and I would just do CARS passages. So I went through the Kaplan CARS passages. I went through, I think I bought a book from Next Step. They had like a book on 528 passages, something like that. I'll link it in the description. And I found those really helpful. Like I said, I didn't do well on CARS my first time around, but I did do better on the second time. And I think a big key part of that was because I was doing CARS consistently and just getting the hang of it. Also to clarify, so doing CARS from noon to 1:30, I would do about like 4 passages. And 4 passages would mean that I would kind of spend at least 40 minutes, 10 minutes per passage. At least that's the ideal time. And then I would make sure I'm spending that same amount of time back and actually reviewing all my answers as well. So if I spend 10 minutes doing a passage, I want to spend at least 10, 12 minutes, even more if I need to review the questions I got wrong, and also review the questions that I got right and make sure I understand why that is, not just the ones I got wrong. So next I would study from 1:30 to 2:30, and then I would have a meal in between that, and I give myself about like an hour break because I know this is a marathon and not a sprint. So I would go upstairs. So I was studying downstairs in the basement, so it was really convenient for me. And I would go upstairs, I would eat my food, I would relax, distress, go for a walk, and then I would come back downstairs at around 3:30 p.m. and study consistently from 3:30 to 7:30. And then again, I'd have another meal, which would usually go for an hour, and that would be dinner. So I talk to the whole family, just relax, distress, again, go for a walk. And then I would study again till 10:30 p.m. So from 8:30 to 10:30. And then lastly, from 10:30 to 11, I was usually just reviewing information, prepping for tomorrow, and then I would allocate some time just in case I needed more time for something. And at 11:30 was my time that I'd like to go to sleep, but I usually turn into 12. So I'd have these buffer zones just in case something didn't go according to schedule, because I didn't want to mess up and make one mistake and then be annoyed about it the whole day. So I knew that I'd have those buffer zones to make up for it. So yeah, I would go to sleep around 12, 11:30 to 12, and wake up again at 7:30. So now let's move on and talk about my key points and the tips that I really want to pass along. First and foremost, even before you begin studying for the MCAT, I think the most important thing you can do is know your why. For those of you who have been following me for a long time, you know that's the first video I did, because it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. You should know why you're doing this. Why are you studying for the MCAT? Why do you want to be a doctor? Why are you applying to medical school? Why do you want to go to medical school? And then once you find out these reasons, once you're done reflecting, write down these reasons on a piece of paper. And while you're at it, also write down your goals. In fact, write down your goals for the next 6 months. Write down your goals for the next year, for the next 5 years, for your 10 years, and then have those notes, have those goals, those reasons on your study table. So for me, to this day, I still write down my goals. I write down what my why is. And I try to reflect on it whenever I am tired, whenever I don't want to do something, or ideally at the beginning of my day, right before I sit down to study. I like to look at my goals. I like to look at why I'm doing all this. Why am I putting myself through all this stress? And that keeps me going. All right, so key tip number 2, don't worry if you haven't done a course. So what happens, for example, if you haven't done a sociology course and sociology is on the MCAT and you're stressed, like, oh my God, I can't write the MCAT now. So this is what happened to me, and looking back at it, I should not have stressed about it at all. Ideally, I'd say get your basic chemistry, biology done ASAP in your first and second year of undergrad. Tip number 3, I think this is so important and I can't stress this enough, it is to get good sleep. So I personally noticed that when I was studying like 10 to 12 hours a day, I would need more sleep as compared to when I was just working a hard labor job or just working all day, because that physical tiredness does not compare to that mental tiredness. And my body really felt that, like I needed those 8 hours. And I think in the long run, it really does help. Looking back at it, I am actually really happy that I did get enough sleep both times I wrote the MCAT. I think that's like the best sleep I've gotten, because you'd be so tired after studying all day that going to sleep was like such a nice feeling. And for me personally, I didn't even have any problems falling asleep. Touch wood, I still don't have any problems falling asleep. Or when I was studying for the MCAT, I would lay in bed and a minute later, my body was tired and I was gone to sleep. And trust me, if you're like, oh my God, I need to study more, I need to like sleep less, you're gonna have tons of sleepless nights in medical school, in residency, and when you're a doctor, so save it for then. I have tons of sleepless nights right now in medical school, and people who are in residency tell me, oh, don't worry, you're gonna go through much worse then. All right, so the next tip. I think this is super important, but everyone should know this. I think it's one of the first things you should do right after you buy all your MCAT gear and you start studying. It's to know your amino acids. Now, by that I mean know what the 3-letter codes for each of the amino acid is, what the 1-letter code is, what the polar, non-polar, what the positively charged and negatively charged amino acids are, how to draw them and everything, and just write it out on a piece of paper and keep that paper on your table, on your study desk, or in your study notes, and review it periodically. Like, you're going to need that knowledge. That's like a given. Like, you should just know that. Another thing which I am pretty sure is not found in any prep book, at least I didn't find it in any of the Kaplan books, is this connotation of amino acids that I wish I had been taught before. And basically, it'll show a letter. So let's say like Y, and then it'll have a number. So let's say 389. Now, the Y389 basically means the first letter is representing the 1-letter code of the amino acid, and the number right after that is the nth amino acid in a linear sequence. So for example, if it's Y 389, that means that tyrosine is the 389th amino acid in a linear sequence. Anyways, I know it's very specific, but I really wish that I had known that before because I didn't find it in any MCAT prep book, and I think I figured that out the first time I did a practice test. Now lastly, I think this is one of the most important tips. If you're taking notes, get ready, get that pencil, get that pen ready, or make note of it somewhere. But basically, regardless of what prep company you go with, whether it's Kaplan, Exam Crackers, Princeton, Next Step, or all the other new ones that are out there now, make sure you do the AAMC full-length tests and all of their resources. So they have flashcards, make sure you go through all of them, and anything else, that new study material that they released since then. And I also recently checked and realized that AAMC now has an official MCAT prep hub, which basically I think is a localized area where you can make an account and you can pay for the full lengths and do the full lengths. So remember, the AAMC is the organization that actually writes the MCAT that you are going to be writing. All of these other practice full lengths that we do from all these different MCAT prep companies, they are just trying to emulate that. But AAMC has the closest format to how they're going to be testing you. So if you're still watching this video, let this be a reminder that this too shall pass. Don't be stressed. It's going to be okay. You can do it. I believe in you. This is going to be a difficult journey. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be impossible. And I always say that I'm not smart or talented in any way, and I truly believe that. Like, I don't think I'm any of those things. I don't think I'm smart. I don't think I'm talented. I think I'm hardworking, and I think because of that, if I can do it, you can do it too. Like, I truly believe that from the core of me. If I can do anything, whether it's working out, medical school, any other thing, you can do it as well. It's all about how much work you put in. So I believe in you. If this is your goal, you know your whys, you know what your goal is. There's nothing in the world that can stop you from getting there. Just keep hustling, keep focusing, and keep going. You got this, fam. With that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you found it even slightly helpful or slightly valuable, I would really appreciate if you could give it a like, if you could share it with your friends, if you could comment, and if you could subscribe to the channel. Now, like the saying goes, we rise by helping others. So if you know someone who's also studying to write the MCAT or who's going to be writing the MCAT, make sure to share this video with them. I hope they find some value in it, and by you sharing it with them, it shows that you care. You literally just developed a friend by sending this video to someone. They're gonna be like, oh my God, you care about me. You want me to do well in the MCAT. Thank you. And before you know it, you've made a new friend, or you deepen your relationship with that person. Until next time, tons of peace, love, and gains for you. Macro, I'm from mom and dazzle. Down the ground like gravel. Coming back around like lasso. Macro, like a vision board, I see with clarity. I hustle like my name is Gary V. For more than the wealth and prosperity. Accountants was talking about equity. I'm Triple H giving the pedigree. That meaning I'm special, my specialty. I'm putting in the work till I'm dirt in the earth. I'm moving furniture to Beverly.